Welcome again. Glad you guys are here. I'm going to touch on just a few key themes just to kick the session off. And I really want to start with a pretty bold statement. So, for a lot of folks out there, hopefully no one in this room, it's a pretty scary time to be a marketer. There's a lot of change out there. Kind of reminds me of that movie, Wizard of Oz. Dorothy kind of wakes up in this technicolor world, turns to her dog, Toto, and says, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. It's kind of like the marketer, kind of waking up, went to bed in a black and white world, linear TV, display and search, all served to your desktop computer. And you've woken up now into this technicolor world with all these different channels and all these different mechanisms. Really difficult world. And you have a choice. You can try to go back to sleep and get back to that black and white world, or you can embrace this technicolor world. And I actually, I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. I actually think for the marketers that really have the pretty savvy marketers, it's the best time to be a marketer, right? So in a world of upheaval, where there's lots of change, the smart marketers, the cream of the crop, they're going to embrace that change. You have the curve. This is a great opportunity to distance yourself from your competitors by doing all these new things and taking advantage of these new technologies to do something great and better than you could before. So in some ways, some folks, hopefully no one's at this conference, they're all sitting there with their head in the sand, going back to that black and white world. Everyone here, some other savvy marketers are embracing that, understand they're trying to this new dimension, this third dimension, this fourth dimension, technicolor world. So I'm going to touch on two things. So first, some of the big-ass challenges that are out there, make things a little difficult, and then talk about 5 imperatives. All things we'll talk about in the next day and a half. So starting with the challenges, the first thing is we continue to organize and measure performance in silos. And we're really good at it. I mean, precise level of detail on your display advertising, on your search advertising. But we're not tying all that data together, and we're not understanding how all that media is working together. So it's a huge challenge that we as an industry need to overcome. When we work with clients, this is a standard report that we show, and this is data from a specific client. You can just see the percentage of their conversions in revenue that are coming from multi-touch, so that means the consumer engaged with more than one media element before converting, and multi-channel. They actually engage not just with multiple touch points, but those touch points happen across different channels like display and search, or mobile and email. Something like that. So you can see this for typical clients. Close to 75% of their conversions have multiple touch points, and that seems pretty straightforward. But there's a recent eMarketer survey that said still, to this day, 65% of folks are still using last minute or last click to measure media performance. Talk about a false sense of precision. It's getting it wrong. Actually, 18% of people in that survey weren't measuring anything. I mean, that's talking about the dark ages. They're not measuring it at all. Just throwing media out there, and maybe it's working, maybe it's not. I don't know who they're working for, but it's crazy, right? 14% of folks actually using some sort of version of attribution. So, we have this multi-touch, multi-channel world. People are engaging with all sorts of media, and most people aren't taking advantage of that, measuring that. So I actually stole this cartoon from one of our clients. I presented with Louis from Lenovo at the Adobe Summit about a month ago, and he used this cartoon. I think it's great. Where's ROI? ROI absent. Another marketing meeting. Kind of ties in another survey we saw. CMO.com did a survey. Less than 20% of marketers are confident in the metrics that they're reporting to their senior leadership. That's a real problem. So most people are still using lots of that. And 80% of marketers aren't really confident in the results that they're generating. That's a real challenge. That's a big-ass challenge, if you ask me. This creates this huge gap, and I think it's a lot of what we're going to talk about the next day and a half. Right? This huge gap between understanding the true connection between marketing and results. And I almost go back, and this is the positive and the negative of the direct response world. Look, the internet kind of came out, and the first way of measuring results was just taking everything we had done as an industry, direct mail and telemarketing, and just applying it to the web. That's what last event attribution is, right? Just replace a display ad with the direct mail piece. You mail a piece out, and you see if they convert or not. The challenge is, back in the day, a large direct mail marketer might mail a couple million pieces, 10 million pieces a month. We as digital advertisers we've had clients, we had one client bought 1 billion ads in a day. 1 billion display ads in a day. So the amount of media volume out there, sending out a media message and seeing if it converts or not, and doing that kind of 100% either converts or doesn't, that worked in the old days. We brought that to the web. We're doing way more volume of media. There's all this interaction. And to use the same way we measured results 15 years ago like we are now just doesn't work anymore. So you have to have a new way of measuring performance. And the benefits, I think, and we'll talk a lot about this during the conference, is if you do that, if you start to use new measurement techniques and leverage some of the new capabilities and kind of embrace this technicolor world, the opportunity to really more precisely understand what's working is really, really strong. So, and again, that gets back to that distance between the cream of the crop and the average marketer. And the chance to kind of outdistance your competitors has never been great. So let's talk about, I guess, just again, so we're on a path, right? We're all here to choose. What path do we want to go? Do we want to stick our head in the sand and still be in that black and white world? Or do we want to embrace the technicolor world that we have in front of us? And hopefully I know the answer to that. So let's talk about some of the imperatives that are out in the marketplace, what you need to do to win. And again, we'll talk about all of these. So the first is, it really is about all channels, all data in one place. We're all measuring in a siloed world right now, most of us are. The first thing you have to do is you have to get all that data into a normalized structure where you can see all the media elements and understand all the things that a user's seeing when they convert or don't convert. And that's becoming more and more difficult because of channel proliferation, the way TV is being consumed. It's all very, very different. So you just need to be able to get all that raw data in one place. That's the first. The second one, and this is something we wouldn't be talking, well, I was talking about it with some of our partners actually that are here today in the mobile space, but this has become way more important in the last 12 months, is you really need to think about users, not devices. So everything I've talked about, the standard way of measuring performance, you're actually doing device level attribution. If I'm using a cookie and measuring performance to a cookie, I'm measuring performance to a device, the PC you guys folks have over here, or the mobile phone you have, or the tablet. But users are now converting and interacting with media across a number of devices. And so you really have to think through, how can I look at user level activity, the media that a user is seeing as they engage with media across different devices. And I like to say this, if I'm working with an insurance client, and so they see a mobile ad on their phone, are they really going to fill out a quote on their mobile phone? It's just not the right form factor. They're going to go back to their PC and do that. And conversely, I might see ads on my desktop, and now I'm in the market getting ready to buy something, and I'm in a store, and I want to kind of comparison shop and see the price I'm seeing in the store. How does that compare to something I can see online? And I'm doing that on my mobile device. And you want to pick up all that activity. It's the same user. And if you use a device ID or a cookie, you're picking up that activity of that device. And if I'm using multiple devices, it's only part of the story. So you really need to make sure that you're thinking through, how do you actually measure user activity as opposed to device level activity? And again, a year or 2 years ago, that was less of an issue. It's much more of an issue now. It's imperative. A lot of our e-commerce clients, so much of their media transactions are happening, and so much of their conversion activity is actually happening on the mobile device. It's really, really interesting. I don't know, I'm a big Rue La La shopper. I mean, it's not just for women. They have a fantastic supplement. And I'm really hooked. I mean, really hooked. And I buy everything on Rue La La on my mobile device. My credit card's hooked up. It's incredibly easy to do that. Now, I first heard of Rue La La, first started engaging with it on my desktop. So I just see it in my own activity. I mean, 6 months ago, I never would have thought I'd be buying stuff off of my mobile phone, but it's incredibly easy. It's kind of like the next thing I check. I check Facebook, check Twitter, open up Rue La La, and while I'm waiting in line, I end up buying stuff. So users, not devices. The third imperative is really change the rules of the game. This is both what you're measuring, so just the conversions you're tracking. We're all just tracking as a conversion pixel fire on a confirmation page and tracking that as a conversion element. But we have the ability now to kind of look at offline data, offline conversions, and tie that, through partners. We work with folks like LiveRamp, and also do it with other folks. Take offline data and address level conversion data and bring it. We work with a really large retailer that doesn't engage any of their transactions online. All of their commerce transactions happen in brick and mortar stores. But they do an incredible job of matching every store purchaser to a mailing address. And so we're able to help this client, and we match that data to our cookie, and we're able to show them how their digital media at a user level is driving people into the stores. And I think about $1 billion in transactions a year, even though those folks never went to the website. So redefine, when you want to change the rules of the game, redefine the conversions you're tracking. We work with certain insurance clients. Instead of just tracking quote start, quote finish, we're actually taking that all the way through to, did they actually buy the policy? And that doesn't typically happen online. That's a pretty important metric, right? At the end of the day, that's what drives revenue. Shoppers that fill out lots of quotes, that's an important step in the process, but ultimately, do they buy your policy or not? And so change the rules of the game, not just on what you're tracking, but also how you're tracking it, right? Find the right methodology, and once you have all this data in one place, use the right methodology. It's going to figure out how you allocate that credit more accurately across the stream of media that you're serving out to users. So the third thing is change the rules of the game. And the fourth is really leverage new ways of buying media. So it's no surprise, we're all familiar with RTV inventory and DSP platforms, but more and more media is becoming available through these channels. And the flexibility that provides to marketers to precisely tune the way that they buy media to different segments of users is just way more effective and valuable than it's ever been kind of buying on direct placement sold media. So I really encourage folks to leverage this. It's just changing by leaps and bounds. I'm not saying anything different. Attribution and better measurement actually reinforces this. So you can find user segments that are really performing well, and you can say this path makes the most sense. You can actually work with some of these RTV platforms, actually precisely message to people in the right flow based on what we see in the data. You just couldn't do that before. So you really want to leverage those capabilities, the power of some of those new transaction challenges. And then the last imperative is think beyond digital. So again, 2 years ago for us, attribution was primarily display and search. It was the display marketing manager that felt that search was getting all the credit, and they just wanted to be able to understand that dynamic. Now it's any and every digital media channel. And it's just the proliferation of digital media channels has just exploded. You have Facebook and Twitter, you have Pinterest right around the corner, you have mobile, you have video, all these different channels versus what you had a few years ago. And now you have to think beyond that, right? Where TV consumption is just changing before our eyes. I mean, how many folks here have cut the cord with their cable provider? That's amazing. It's higher and higher every time. I'm still, the only thing that keeps me tied to cable is ESPN. Because I'm a sports junkie. I've found no other way to get sports content that I'm interested in watching other than paying $150 a month to Time Warner Cable. So how do you kind of break through that, right? TV consumption is changing. Our TVs are just around the corner from becoming a connected device. Folks that are watching media on their tablet or on their phone or on their PC, just the way that media consumption is changing. And I don't think we're that far off from TV data being available at a user level differently than display data. And so, the interim steps now, you want to start taking certain media mix methodologies that have been around for 20 years and start looking at how you can incorporate that in so you get a full funnel view of your marketing activity. And so it's not just about digital anymore. I think you have a lot of companies that are set up where they have kind of their brick and mortar marketing activities or offline marketing activities completely separate from their digital marketing activities. A lot of those companies have their brick and mortar conversion or revenue lines completely separate from their digital lines. All that's going to blur together and come together. And that's really about bringing, and I think if you're on the digital side of the house, you want to push for that. You want to bring all that activity together. You want to start bringing some of that offline media into how you're tracking your digital media performance, because they do work together. At the end of the day, with those 5 imperatives, it really empowers you to move your business forward. And hopefully, for the rest of today and into tomorrow, you use this conference as an opportunity to ask questions. Ask some probing questions of the folks who are here. Right? We've got a lot of smart people coming up with a lot of great content. And we want you to really be engaged and help us, right? We've got a lot of smart people who are going to be up here, but you guys have some great perspectives as well. We want you to be able to share that. I think the other thing that would really be great is, make a point to try to meet 10 people that you've never met before that are here at this conference. Be social, both literally and figuratively. Tweet about what you're doing. Meet folks. And hopefully all that's going to help you leave this conference and kind of take away some really key points that help you all be more effective marketers. And with that, I don't know who we're handing over to next. Casey?
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. So who am I handing over to? That's all I
It'll
got.
be Jeff Greger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff Greger, come on up. Thanks very much, folks.